Thank you again, everybody. We're so glad that you're here for our monthly meditation today in June. And it's our privilege and joy to have back with us Rabbi Henry Shreibman, who's a longtime friend of the Marin Interfaith Council and has led these before and spoken at our prayer breakfast. And we're just a delight to have him with us today. He's a retired professor of religion and philosophy, previously taught at Dominican University and at CSU Sonoma State, where he helped start their Jewish Studies program. He's been active in interfaith and multicultural visioning and work for over 40 years in the US, England, and Israel. He earned a PhD, Master's of Philosophy and MA from Columbia University in New York in comparative ancient religions and literatures. He's an ordained rabbi since 1981 from the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College in Philadelphia. And in March 2013, he was listed among America's most inspiring rabbis, absolutely true, by the Jewish Daily Forward. He brings wisdom, so much humor, and passion to his work. His enthusiasm for his chosen academic pursuits, rabbinic work, and student-centered approach is contagious, and we know that those of you who know him agree. So thrilled to have you with us and grateful to you, Rabbi Henry. Thank you for being with us today.
My great pleasure. I'm long-winded and I'm usually a visual teacher. So I'm going to combine my speaking with you together with a visual presentation, just as a cue. So I'm going to try, for me, which is not easy, to speak in a meditative mode. So wish me luck, because the way I communicate with the divine, and some of you've known me for a very long time, is really somewhere between the head and the heart. And occasionally I can get there soulfully. And therefore, in my early 20s, I was frustrated about some of the classic concepts of organized religion, which included revelation and these touch the face of God, Al Jarreau said. And that was hard for me to grasp. But by going backwards into a more primitive modality, away from the theologies and the theosophies, the combination of philosophy and theology together, and to go back to the basics. And the trigger for that was a concept of the still small voice. This is a little teaching. It's a midrash, basically a biblical tale or parable that appears in 1 Kings chapter 19:10. I'll give you the quote later if you wish. But basically, Elijah is the number 2 to Moses. They're separated by hundreds of years, but Moses does miracles and they're big. Elijah shows up in the 1200s, 1100s BCE, Moses 1400, 1200, something like that. So at least several hundred years later. And Elijah keeps going, I can't get my Bic started. How am I going to know where God is? And God does this demonstration outside the mouth of a cave. And it's with wind and it's fire and it's dramatic and it keeps going and going. Why earthquakes? And Elijah's, nothing's happening. And then the phrase appears, called Mama Daka, with a voice called the Mama, silent almost. A whispering voice, Daka. It's very thin, a narrow voice. And that's where he found his sense of God. So if you take a look at this little intro I did, this is the meditative intro. A still small voice is the way to contemplate miracles. The analogy is that you and I look for miracles to solve our medical problems, our financial problems, our marital problems. And it seems that if you go back to some of the earliest attempts to describe interaction with the divine and miracles, it's called the Mama Daka. It is a narrow, thin voice because At the end of every day and at the beginning of every day as we first rise, this is the time that we can potentially sense the divine. Entrances and exits are dramatic, both in life and in the universe and in creation. For the next few minutes, let's reflect and meditate Yomam V'Laila, day and night. You contemplate it, means, and everything in between. Day and night and everything in between. Not the big M miracle, but the subtle, the sublime, the miracles that are hidden in plain sight, and maybe you'll see them in your life. Some of the material that I'm going to show you and guide you through has this on the cover. And on this side, it has this, which is the sun rising and the sun setting. Every day in Jewish prayer, you have two basic types the rabbis talk about. One is the tza'akah, the cry for help. Nobody needs to tell you how to do that. Whether God's listening or not, maybe you'll get the strength to get through an emergency room visit, through the death of a friend. Whatever it is, you make a cry. It's nonverbal. Blowing a shofar, which I've done many times with you folks, is nonverbal prayer. But here, at the very beginning of every daily service, the prayer says, Moda'ani or Moda'ani. It actually is gender specific. There's only a handful of prayers that are like that in all of 2,000 years of rabbinic prayer. But this one is saying, I'm a woman, dear God. You come before me. You have returned to me my soul, my spirit. How did you do that in the morning when I woke up? The minute I opened my eyes, the chemla, with a warm embrace, rabbah, a really good one, and you had faith in me. So you reignited me in the morning. The chemla rabbah emunatecha. Your faith in me is like this big caring thing that I'm going to give you, which is life. Take a moment in preparation for tomorrow when you open your eyes, and in preparation now for the end of the day. What are you grateful for? And what did you notice that made each day unique as today wanes and tomorrow when it waxes? That's our first meditative thought. And you can see the kavanah in the English here. You can just morph that for the end of the day as well. Take a moment. When you think about the miraculous in life, in this same prayer book, I conceptualize big M miracles and small M miracles. And my proposition is most people want big M miracles, but they're not sure what those are. And nobody wants a small M miracle. But maybe I can change the way you see that.
Henry, I don't think screen sharing. We don't.
Oh, again?
Yeah, we don't see it.
Okay. Boy, it was such a smooth segue. I was impressed. You got it now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So here is a quick thought on the miraculous, niflaot, in one of the Hebrew words for that. These are some of the wonderful surprises that God created in history or in your life. You can think of the Exodus from Egypt in 1250, where a whole people escaped from one of the most powerful nations in the ancient world. And here's the emphasis for our next prayerful thought. Or think of when great things have happened to you or those you love for no good reason. All of us have a collection in our mind of moments that we didn't deserve this. What the hell, unrequited love. What did I do? This is unrequited good. You didn't do a damn thing to deserve it. Think about the last time you and or a family member experienced that. You didn't earn it, no good reason. Take a moment reflecting. This image you can see? Pick one of these 4 phrases. These are wisdom phrases. Pick one and meditate on it. Just again, for a moment. And this is a wonderful little mantra. And if you don't read Hebrew, I can transliterate it for you. But it sounds like this in the Hebrew. V'im ruchi geviati Adonai li v'lo ira. And the E ending in each case means me. Most Hebrew prayer, most rabbinic prayer is in the first person plural. But look again, right? In the small places, called the Mamad Daka, this very narrow place. Here's another one that's all about me. You see? My soul, my place. Another reflective, prayerful moment. What are you supposed to do with your heart? Remember I said mostly my head gets me into a prayerful mode. So what can you do? When you're confronted with public prayer, organized prayer, what's called fixed prayer, keva, here's some suggestions. What was the difference in the mood since the last time we prayed together? Think, you're answering this, not me. What in you has changed since the last time you were prayerful? In your workplace or in class, how has the mood been different, better, changed? I wrote this 35 years ago. What's changed in our country since the last week? What's different in Israel and the Middle East since the last time we prayed? Was this a good week for our world? Was this a good week for nature? So if you can't get prayerful, any one of these, quick way to refocus and become meditative on the big M or the small m miracle. That's up to you. This prayer, the Shema, Hear, O Israel, I couldn't get it all in the frame. You've heard this, the Shema. Well, it's the same prayer that's in Arabic, the Shahada, which is the affirmation of the uniqueness and monotheistic vision in Islam. And as you know, this prayer this part certainly you know, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your strength. It's in the New Testament twice. But again, this is an I-you relationship. Ich, thou, right? Ich, du. That Buber talks about. sitting there, sitting there in plain sight. So what has changed since this morning? Okay, you woke up this morning. Maybe you had that moda'ani moment. Maybe you didn't. But now, what's different, beloved, levavcha? What's different in your heart, in your nefesh, your soulful feelings? Was it a light day? Was it a dark day? Did you have fears? And what strength did you identify or did you feel? Take a moment, reflect on that. That's about a 3,000-year-old exercise, by the way. In looking at that last image of the Shema, and this, by the way, is that prayer, which starts off right after you say, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one," sort of the mantra of ethical monotheism. The next word is v'ahavta, love. So you and I in Christianity, you're a Christian, you know, it's all about the love. So you turn on the radio Sunday morning, it's all about love. That's the prayer where it came from. Do you grant that love to others in study, in prayer, or action? What was your blend today? So here's a kavanah that gets closer to the focus of what is prayerful about miracles. And again, I'm asking you to reflect internally. We'll leave enough time for those of you who want to think out loud about some of these concepts I'm putting forward. But this is a kavanah. You can see this term up here. And in Hebrew, K, you see it or you don't? You do. Okay. So this word kavanah and the Hebrew root, just like Arabic, 3 letters make a root 99% of the time. KVN means direction. So kavanah, which usually means what is your spirit behind the prayer, really means what are you directing it toward? And this particular directional question is, what are types of miracles that you and I can anticipate in life, and how would you define them? So it's written in a very simple way. Good things are happening right now, right here, inside me and you, all around you and I. Good things are happening right now. You call it luck. Some call it nature. Some call it an act of faith. But for me, it's a big M miracle. A big M, major miracle is that all this goodness is happening all the time. However, it would also be a super, but a sort of small M miracle for me to see, feel, to sense, to acknowledge all of this goodness is flowing actually toward me from God. Now that's a true miracle, no matter how you spell it. And again, reflect now, how do you define a big M and what's the small m? Would anybody like to share at this juncture what crossed your mind in terms of a small M miracle or a large M miracle, and which do you anticipate more or think about more or pray for more? Yeah, so the psalmists and the prophets are very rational thinkers, and they also are always looking for the false god that we create. And I love some of the science. They just, had another scientific discovery that people who are depressed tend to wake up in the morning depressed, and then they don't sleep well at night because they're depressed. And how many times, at least if you're 60 or 70 years old, how many times have we seen that discussed back and forth, that the egg and the chicken, and it'll drive one crazy? And you feel that kind of spiritual dilemma in the Psalms. And at least 28 times in the Psalms, a phrase will start with the idea, ad matai, how long? How long is this going to last? One of you were talking about illnesses. Other people didn't talk about it, but it's there. If I say backache, you know which ones do you have that. Migraines, you know who has that, right? But in terms of what the psalmists were saying, they went, it isn't going to last forever. And if I focus on the good of the universe, it'll take my mind off it. And Leslie, that's sort of like the creative process, right? When you're a dancer, you mark your moves. But when you're dancing in front of an audience, you do the move, right? You become a dancer. And then you find out 45 minutes went away. And that's in sports, and that's in arts, and in the creative process of pursuing the power of the universe, right? Because again, unless you're a Hindu, and a pretty strict Hindu with multiple gods watching over you, when you're a monotheist, you know that we see the byproduct of the divine. You ain't never going to see the divine. So you see what I mean? So why would we have a material expectation of miracles other than an awareness? And there are a couple of people who are listening who are my friends. And during COVID, every time somebody's name or a thought went through my head, I contacted them. I didn't care if it was 30 years ago or 40 years ago. And I just went ahead and did that. And 95% of the time people were ecstatic. A couple of them I shouldn't have done. But that touches on what Leslie said, which many of us question, which is what is beshert? What is fated? It's sort of a Yiddish term, which is much less tied to the idea of providence, and that sounds very Episcopalian. I love Episcopalians. It's okay, but it's just not beshert. It lined up, and you happen to be aware of it for that moment, right? The lineups are there all the time. Mm-hmm. Mystics tell us in every the universe is lined up all the time. But as I like to say, nature is cruel, but we turn to nature to find the divine in us, and we take hikes. And it's a life-risking behavior at different periods in your life for different reasons. But you go into nature, and entropy sucks. But it's part of the natural process. And gravity. I've never had an interaction with gravity that worked out better for gravity than it did for me. Am I right? So it makes you smile and laugh because it's hardwired into the universe. What makes the fall beautiful? The leaves are dying. Right. These are the meditative moments I wanted to open up in us. So I'm going to continue. I appreciate it. Others of you will talk a little more in a moment. So here's that concept of nature. Early in Jewish prayer, every day, there's a whole list of baruchs. And those of you who've been exposed to Jewish prayer know that every word begins baruch, 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 baruch atah, baruch, right? And if you're Christian, you know that. because that word Baruch in Greek and Latin is Beatitudes. Jesus does not start to formulate his thinking as a lawgiver, right? It's on a mountain, right? Prefiguring as Moses until you bless. And blessing is a punctuation mark. A blessing over water. Shekol niya bivaro. The minute I say that, I'm more aware of cold water moving through my body and being refreshed. So by blessing a moment, you're not making it sacred. I didn't make this water sacred. The water is not going into me, making me sacred. But the moment, the experience is sacred. And look how many thousands of blessing moments there are like that. And that's one of the concepts that the rabbis float 2,000 years ago, which is you should say 100 new prayers a day. Think for a moment, either in nature or in yourself, what would be a new thing that happened to you today? Something new that makes you prayerful. A moment, a feeling, a thought. So here's another little kavanah. Most prayers in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and in Eastern religions, wake us up to different aspects of nature. The beauty of this short session is that when I shut up, you can look at the sunset. And you can look at the stars tonight. You don't need a meteor shower to have an oh wow moment. So this little kavanah, again, the direction of prayer is, I think, the tension between the beauty of nature and the responsibility. So as human beings, help us to remember that we are part of nature. We're not the best, nor are we the worst of nature and God's creations, but we are the most responsible. The tree can't defend itself up against us. So we borrow from nature so that we can hopefully protect it. And that, again, if you're biblically alerted and you're familiar with it, the acts of creation in Genesis call upon us to be a co-creator with God. You know, Adam named the animals. That's an extended metaphor, right? That's why you and I get gentle when we think about animals. So here's another one of those loves. This comes, by the way, after, introducing the Shema. So you have to say love paragraphs before the Shema, right? Ethical monotheism, and then another paragraph of love. And this is the daytime love prayer. And in this prayer book, again, from the 80s, notice that I don't make God a father, he. But here it says, Avinu ha'av harachaman, our Father, right? This is very New Testament sounding because this was written in that period by the rabbis. So this is Jesus sounding like to you. Avinu, our Father, ha'av harachaman, the caring Father. Hamrachem, care for us. Care for us, why? Like a mother. The word rachamim, and in Arabic, if you've had Arabic, Rahmana, Rahima, right? They're names of the beautiful names of Allah. About 7 have the word R, in it. And that means womb. So this is our Father, love us with womb love, care for us like a mother, and permit us to understand, be creative, and listen. Where were you creative today? Where did you show womb love for somebody? And where did you seek out knowledge today? One of the problems with seeking miracles and seeking a prayerful moment at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day is very often as we reflect, we also start to think about our foibles, the problem of being human, our failures, sometimes in a really big way. And this is one of my favorite phrases from the Zohar. It's a mystical interpretation of the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible. A good intention is counted as a good deed. Yetzer Hatov is counted as a mitzvah. You know the word mitzvah, that you've heard of. And a mitzvah is doing the right thing at the right time, to the right person, for the right reason. So your intention is counted as a good deed. And then the later rabbis dealing with that say, it's because once it's counted as a good deed, now you have to fulfill it. So for example, if I made a blessing over the water, but I don't drink the water, it's not a mitzvah. It's not, you haven't closed the deal. So in your prayers, when you feel the weakness, when you feel the foibles, when you feel your own failures coming up, think about your good intentions and count them as good deeds. It's a great way to be more kind to yourself.